Is there a place for bitterness in our lives? Bitterness towards another person is never allowed, especially to a loved one. But the question is, bitterness towards myself, is that a good thing? Or is that a debilitating feeling? Let us understand. You speak of the Bainani, this intermediate person who has mastery over their actions, their words, their cogitated, willful thoughts. And they might have at times a dull heart that they want to relieve themselves of the dullness of the heart and reveal the true love and attachment and connection to the divine, to Hashem. And by dwelling on how they are lesser than all others, including the Kal Shebekalim, the simpleton of simpleton, that street vendor who has to struggle just to keep the eyes in the appropriate place while doing business on the street in a modest place, or potentially at least. So when you can see yourself, when you meditate upon, as the Bainani does, in order to eradicate, or not eradicate, not the right word, but to not allow the evil impulse to control in a way that the soul's devotion and spontaneity, the love it has, should be open and revealed. So by thinking about the lowliness of the individual compared to even the most lowly of people, that Kal Shebekalim, the street vendor, again, this is all metaphorical in the sense, street vendor might be, who knows, one of the hidden righteous people, but you're just using this as a tool, or the Alter Rebbe is using this as a tool to overcome the negativity from within. So this might lead to sadness, though. It may lead to sadness. Think about it for a moment, folks. You meditate upon the Bainani, right? This great individual. We're only Bainani in training. We're not Bainanis. We don't have mastery, self-mastery over our actions, every action, over every word that we express, over every willful, cogitated thought. So this Bainani, after this deep meditation about how they are lesser than, in order to subdue that negativity from within, that's the purpose of doing that that meditation, can bring a person to, feeling depressed. No one wants to feel less than, naturally, right? So Alter Rebbe says, the Bainani. Now, this is very important that we be careful not to try this at home without guidance, as we have in the TRC, because we have to be ready for this. So may come to bringing you down. Alter Rebbe says it's not a problem. Again, for the Bainani, why? Is because this atzvus, sadness, is not from a holy place. Very important point now. Because holiness, it says, is only with gladness. The divine presence can only be in a person that is full of joy. If you're not full of joy, you don't have the divine presence in you. Now, we mean real joy, not like, oh, I'm joyful now because I got something I want. That's not joy. We're going to get more into what joy is. So God's presence can only be when you're joyful. So then why are you contemplating this, that you are lesser than, in order to, subjugate the evil impulse within the Beinoni? That might lead you to a state of sadness, which is not holy. Doesn't the Beinoni only want to be holy? Now, this is not a problem, because this sadness is from klipa, but klipa's noiga. Klipa, a shell that covers over, but it's from the good part of klipa. There's a negative part of klipa, right, which is all self-directed, pleasure-seeking individual. And then there is the good part of it. And this is the good part. Why is this good? Because now here's the difference between holiness and good klipa. Holiness is an end in itself. So the joy that a person has, which we will explain what joy means, doesn't mean joy that, God gave me another day, I'm joyful. That's not sufficient. We'll get there. Not now. Or God gifted me, therefore I'm joyful. No. The reason why so that's an end in itself, and klipa, and the good part of klipa, because klipa's noiga, has a mixture of good and bad in it. Just like everything in this world. This is animated by klipa's noiga, this mug, right? It's not holy. It's not a mitzvah. It's animated by good and bad. Vitality of God Almighty. When I use it for good, so I elevate it. So likewise, that the sadness that the Beinoni feels because of this contemplation is the good part of klipa. Why? Because it's a means to an end. Just like the mug is a means to an end. And if I use it for a proper good end, so therefore it's elevated. So likewise, this sadness is also means to an end. What's the means to an end? Well, why is the person sad? Because of their spiritual failings. When they contemplate about how they are not exerting themselves as the Kal Shebekalim needs to exert himself in that street vendor, right? Who needs to keep his eyes away from immodest places, by way of example. So now that's a good means to an end, because you recognize spiritual failings that you want to now, that stems from a good part in klipa. But why is it only, the recognition is only, feeling down because of that spiritual lack? Because that's not change itself. It's a possibility for change, but it's not change itself. In other words, feeling down when you realize your spiritual failings, because you've thought into it, is not change itself. So what is change? Get there in a moment. So that sadness is okay. That we feel our spiritual failings. But it should not be that sadness when we are praying, for example. Or studying Torah like now. Because that's inherent holiness. That needs to be done with joy. You pray to God with joy. You study Torah with joy. You're sensing your spiritual failings? Not then. Because that's only a means to an end. Torah study, prayer, and other mitzvahs are an end in itself, so it's not the time for that. It's not the time to crush the negativity from within. right? So, but then the question becomes, why, to deal with the negativity within, do I not use joy to overcome it? Do not use something positive to overcome the negativity within. So here says the Alter Rebbe, teaching from a teachings from the sages. Says that the forest itself comes the handle of the axe which fells the forest. Which, in other words, how does the forest get cut down? By an axe. By an axe. But the axe is from the wood from the forest, from the tree of the forest. Yes. In other words, how do you fight fire? With fire. How do you chop down the tree? With the tree. How do you fight negativity? With negativity. Ah. So we have one kind of a negativity, which is sadness, which we just expressed. So initially, when a person senses their spiritual failings, they're going to feel down. But that should be for the moment, for a brief time. That then should turn, right, into a contrite heart that is bitter. The bitterness of the soul. The one feels distant from truth, distant from holiness, distant from God. The Beinoni we're talking about in that meditation, comparing to the Kal Shebekalim, the simpleton, that street vendor, and how they have to struggle for a simple thing to watch their eyes. What exertion that needs. I'm recognizing the exertion I need to do positive and good things. And we're recognizing that I'm distant. That brings sensing spiritual failings. Only the positive, the Beinoni we're talking about. But recognizing their distance, their failings. Again, this is all a method in order to crush the negativity from within. So the first thing that will come while feeling in the spiritual failings is sadness. Oh. But that should then turn into bitterness. Ooh. Bitterness. Mirirus in Hebrew. What's the difference between sadness and bitterness? Folks, we got to follow carefully everything. Hold on to your questions. Follow the Alter Rebbe. The path he leads us on is tremendous. It's beautiful. Sadness weighs you down. Even though it's sadness about your spiritual failings, which can lead, is a means to an end, but the sadness itself is a downer. Weighs you down. And therefore, not a place to stay. Bitterness, though, is not a downer. It doesn't weigh you. On the contrary, it's a force of life that is powerful. So when you feel the bitterness from within, why did I say that? Why did I do that? That gives us the capability on turning on a dime our direction. From downwards to moving back up. Because of that vitality. And hence, bitterness and our spiritual failings is actually a holy attribute. Au contraire from the world we live in, where we can be bitter to the world because you are whatever, a complete failure. The opposite the world sees things. And therefore we could, cancel you because I'm so bitter at the way you are. Comes the Tanya and tells us that bitterness is not to cancel the world, but it's to cancel my negativity. That's what failure is. That's what bitterness is meant for. To look from within, to cancel my negativity so I could then turn my spiritual failings into growth. And this is the idea that our sages teach us, that one should always incite the good inclination again to anger against the evil inclination, in order to not allow that negativity from within to have any dominion over me. When is the time to have this bitterness in order to change direction in my spiritual failings? At a time that I'm anyway somewhat down in my mundane activities. Not when you're studying Tanya, not when you're doing good, not when you're doing a mitzvah, but when you're down. So that is a time to take that from down of the spiritual failings, convert it into a bitterness that changes the direction. And it's a holy bitterness. Just like we have kindness that is divine, giving to be like God, that God gives. So likewise we have gvura. Gvura means strength. Strength means that I could, how could I do that? Feeling that bitterness from within, that becomes, in that moment, change itself, which is an end in itself. Wow. What the Alter Rebbe is giving us for our lives. If we only stay tuned, stay on track. More to come on this and what joy really means. We're going to get there. Davida, does our souls coming into this world knowing the struggles we face, or is it just this world that we must overcome whatever happens? Both is true. Huh? Why don't you go without question marks? Okay. It sounds like you're saying, says, when a person's knowledge must struggle much more to avoid error and sin than a person without such knowledge. Exactly. You're right. That's the difference between an adult and a child. Exactly. Elise. So the person who has to make more of an effort to overcome the evil impulse has to struggle more, is the more worthy. The more the struggle. Right. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. All right, folks. Rachel says thank you. She really needed to hear this today. Okay. By the way, when you have questions, put 2 question marks first so it makes it clear that there's a question. All right, folks. 6:30, there's going to be a Torah studies class on Purim. You don't want to miss this tonight. 6:30. Purim is coming, and we need to ready ourselves. Okay, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. It's on Zoom, 770-770-6085. 770 is international headquarters of Chabad, 770 Eastern Parkway. So for us, the word 770 just, means, hey, home, holiness, Rabbi. So 770, and 685 is my home address. Number, at least. Join us at 6:30. And TRC tonight. Don't want to miss it. And those who have not signed up yet, let me know, and we will get you in. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing day, and a good Tavach, Shavua Tov, a good week. God bless you. Thank you.